the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I am Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. The time is 2:00 in the afternoon, and this hearing is being conducted virtually. It is accessible live via the Zoom video conference broadcast platform. It's also available live on the Chairman's website, which is www.chairmanmendelson.com/live. It is being recorded. It also will be available on the council's website, which is www.dccouncil.us. The subject of this roundtable is consideration of PR 24-359, entitled The Board of Directors of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, Tracy Haddon Lowe, Appointment Resolution of 2021. This resolution was introduced by me on October 1st. And the purpose of this resolution is to appoint Ms. Tracy Haddon Lowe to the Board of Directors of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, otherwise known as WMATA, to the WMATA Board for a term to end June 30th, 2025. The Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority is a regional instrumentality created through an interstate compact between the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Maryland, and the District of Columbia to plan, develop, finance, and operate a regional transportation system in the Washington metropolitan area. The WMATA Board serves as the governing body for WMATA and is composed of principal directors and alternate directors appointed by the Council of the District of Columbia, the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, and the Secretary of the United States Department of Transportation. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony from public witnesses as to the fitness of the proposed council appointee for the WMATA Board. So even though this is a compact between three states, the federal government is also a partner. So there are 8 members, 2 appointed by each jurisdiction on the Board of Directors. And this appointment is by the council. And Ms. Lowe will be taking the seat that previously was held by Stephanie Giddaby. His term ended on June 30th, and she asked not to be reappointed at this time. The record in this matter will be open for just under 2 weeks. It will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, November 1st. Again, the record will close on Monday, November 1st. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, we will move forward with this nomination and put it before the Committee of the Whole for a vote and for the Council for a vote on November 1st. Excuse me, Tuesday, November 2nd. We have 2 witnesses, the nominee and David Alpert. I'm going to call David Alpert first. He was formerly active with the Greater Washington. I'm not sure what he's doing now, but maybe he'll tell us. Good afternoon, Mr. Alpert. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mendelson. I am David Alpert, and I'm speaking just on my own individual behalf right now, though as you mentioned, I was formerly Executive Director of Greater Washington, where I had the opportunity to work with Tracy Lowe. Good afternoon. I was very excited to learn of your nomination of Tracy Lowe as a district representative to the WMATA Board of Directors. She's a longtime resident, regular rider, urban policy scholar, parent, and involved participant in the district's policy conversations, all qualities that are vital for members of this important board. She has demonstrated a deep understanding of transportation policies, an ability to work with regional leaders, and a willingness to speak her mind and challenge practices that need challenging. She understands organizational dynamics and transportation planning principles alike. I have been following the WMATA board closely for many years. While serving on the Riders Advisory Council, in 2010, I led a committee which made governance recommendations for the WMATA board in a report. Those recommendations called for members who were regular riders and who also had a degree of public stature. Both are necessary. Members need to understand the experiences of riders and not simply focus on moving trains and buses from one end of a line to the other. The board has often been very disconnected from riders' experiences, at times only hearing information that the general manager wanted them to hear. As a rider and as a person with strong community ties, Dr. Lowe will be well positioned to help the board know what is really going on and hopefully to improve its public input practices. WMATA is also an agency which is ultimately funded by its component jurisdictions, and so its board cannot simply operate inside a bubble. Board members need strong relationships with the funding entities such as DDOT and the council, and Dr. Lowe brings a proven ability to work well with these. Her work demonstrates her commitment to equity, something the WMATA board must hold as one of its highest priorities. Transit service has been subpar in many areas of our region where people most need it, and often fare structures have been unfair, such as with a penalty for those transferring from rail to bus. For many years, the WMATA board showed no concern about this greatly inequitable policy. Fortunately, thanks in large part to district representatives like former member Stephanie Gideby, that policy has been changed, hopefully forever. Dr. Lowe can protect these gains and also continue to fight for the many other ways Metro policies and practices can be more equitable. The WMATA board must conduct adequate oversight without micromanaging, just as the DC Council provides oversight of government agencies. The agency's safety lapses, as seen most recently with the derailment that led to all 7,000 series cars being pulled from service, demonstrate the urgency of this role. Dr. Lowe is well equipped to dig into the issues and ask important questions. I'm very enthusiastic about this nomination and encourage the council to confirm Dr. Lowe as soon as possible, so she can immediately set about the critical but difficult task of helping WMATA navigate its significant current challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I emailed my testimony to the COW at DC Council address just a few minutes ago, if you don't have it already.
I do have it. Cracker Jack staff got your statement to me, so I do have it. I have a couple of questions. One, I understand that Ms. Lowe was on the Greater Washington Board, if not the chair, when you were still executive director. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. She joined the board when I was executive director, and then she became chair right around the time that I left.
And a question I asked of the last nominee at a hearing a few minutes ago, and I'll ask of the next nominees at the next hearing, is about working well with each other. So it's important to me that board members are collegial or work well together. Is that what you saw with her on the Greater Washington Board?
Absolutely. She always worked very well with all the other members. She worked well with me, and she worked well with the other staff members at Greater Washington also, who she built a really good relationship with. She was very effective at at building consensus and collaborating with people in order to push for things to happen that needed to happen, and also doing that in a collaborative and positive way.
Thank you. My last question is, even though you spoke about both rail and bus, right or wrong, I sort of think of you, Mr. Alpert, as being very focused on bus service. Do you want to speak to the importance of bus service for a moment and then tie that into what you see with Ms. Lowe?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you feel that you've heard from me a lot about the importance of bus service, because it is very important. I think both are important. I actually ride the rail more than the bus, given where I live, but bus has been for many years something that was underappreciated and underweighted by the WMATA board members, by maybe elected officials, not meaning you necessarily, but around the region, who often, and members of the public and the press, who often saw rail as being sort of what they saw Metro as being about. And then to a certain extent, bus was something of an afterthought. Bus moves a great many people. I don't have all the statistics in front of me, but it reaches, of course, people in all the parts of the region not reached by rail. It reaches, it often serves our less affluent residents, though it serves everybody. And it's also the best opportunity that WMATA has had to significantly improve transit service. Building new rail lines is going to happen very little, if at all, but increasing bus service is, as we've discussed before, really valuable opportunity to improve the buses, and also adding bus lanes. Just now, with all the problems that have been happening with the rail, I saw someone tweeting a picture of a bus moving along the one of the H-I Street bus lanes. I think it was maybe the H Street one. And it was able to navigate past a lot of the congestion in order to move very large numbers of people to and from, in this case, the downtown area efficiently, and at a time when the trains are not running very frequently. So improving the bus service is a great opportunity for us to make transit better in the region, and especially improve equity in that regard. And also doing dedicated bus lanes is a great opportunity for that. So I value that that Dr. Lowe is very much recognizes this as well, has lots of experience with riding bus as well as rail. And I am confident will represent the district in this in both. And it's worth mentioning Metro Access is also a mode of WMATA that's important, that I personally don't have as much experience with, but is also very important for the agency to do a good job on.
I have to say that I don't have to, but I will say that with the current crisis with the 9,000 series cars, 10,000?
7,000.
Thank you. That the flexibility of bus is just more obvious. And well, I won't say more than that, but it just highlights that buses are important.
Agreed.
I do not have any other questions for you. Thank you for taking the time to testify and to give your observations on the nominee.
Thank you very much for your selection of nominee.
You are excused, and we will call the nominee. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm still dealing with my embarrassment that I don't know the right series number for the train cars that are out of service right now. It's 7,000 series.
Well, it's also a little confusing because quite a few of the 6,000 series are out of service right now because of the previous decoupling issue. So
right.
Don't beat yourself up about it.
You have a statement. Why don't you give the statement, then I have a few questions for you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chairman Mendelson and members of the Committee of the Whole for the time. I am going to give a very abridged version of the written statement that I submitted just for the purposes of time so that we can have some time for discussion. So I'm Tracy Haddon-Lowe, and I'm a fellow at the Brookings Institution for my day job. And I first just want to start out by taking a moment to acknowledge the extraordinary crisis that WMATA is currently facing with the 7,000 series car safety issues that the public learned about last week after a train derailed on the Blue Line. I'm not privy to any special information on these unfolding events, but I do want to take the time to highlight a few key points that come to mind as I observe the crisis unfold. The first is that both the public and other elected officials serving in the compact jurisdictions, such as yourselves, want to see vigorous oversight from the WMATA board at all times, and especially in a time of crisis. So it's critical that DC's vacant seat on the board be filled as soon as possible, and with a representative who is ready to ask questions. I am ready, and I appreciate your consideration. So just some examples of questions. So for example, staff at WMATA have been aware of axle or wheel issues with the 7,000 series for years, according to some reports. Why were these issues not resolved? And is there any responsibility of the manufacturer at this point? Second, most of the 6,000 series is out of service because of the prior decoupling issue. Can we safely and rapidly get some of these cars back on the tracks? Third, WMATA has a frequent bus network already in place. What can we do to increase awareness of this option and maximize its usefulness as we figure out what's going on with the 7,000 and 6,000 series cars? So that's just a little bit about what's front of mind at the current moment. But now to the topic of this hearing, I have to drag you back to a little bit more about me. I've been a WMATA customer my entire life. I first used tokens to ride a Metrobus to school as a DCPS student, and I know the whole system. I've lived in wards 3, 5, 6, and Prince George's County over the years, and I've also relied on transit while traveling throughout the US and around the world. I have a global sense of transit system design and practices. I've seen some of the world's best transit, from the Hong Kong MTR Corporation's shiny shopping centers to Amsterdam's electric buses. But I've also stood unsheltered in a ditch on the side of a road and waited for a bus. I love and rely on transit every day, and I believe our system can be truly great. It could be extremely convenient, sociable and safe, fiscally and environmentally sustainable, and a literal engine of racial and economic mobility. I currently ride the bus every day to take my older daughter and my neighbor's children to school. When I'm not teleworking, I then take Metro Rail to my office. I also regularly drive and bicycle, and I think transportation works best when many modes are integrated. I want to serve on the WMATA board specifically because I do feel called to public service. And I also believe that sustainable, high quality public transit is both possible and essential for our communities, our region, and the planet. I'd be honored to play a role in improving our regional system. I think there are simple priorities the system can advance that will greatly strengthen it. And a strong WMATA will undergird a strong district. So let's get to those priorities. The first is to reduce waste. There are many ways that we can get more out of the existing system. I see two main prongs. On the asset side, WMATA must plan and develop world-class transit-oriented development on the many or underutilized parcels and buildings it owns. WMATA currently generates $15 to $50 million in rent and advertising revenue from its assets annually, but it's not out of the question to imagine a world in which WMATA makes 10 times more in revenue from real estate. In a good year, that would be $500 million, or almost half of WMATA's operating budget. And that would be before accounting for increased revenue from new trips to and from new developments that we could collect without paying for any new rail or stations. On the operations side, we must end the waste of congestion. Traffic congestion reduces the quality of bus service and makes it more expensive to run, which is a terrible paradox. It also increases emissions and decreases safety. The district has a lot to gain from liberating buses from traffic. We can do it with priority bus lanes with enforcement, all-door boarding and easy payment, and appropriately pricing and allocating road right-of-way. By implementing these changes, we can move more people more quickly, generating more new revenue than these initiatives cost. My second priority is about balancing growth and maintenance. System expansions and ribbon cuttings tend to attract a lot of public attention, but it's often the less noticed maintenance work that makes the most important difference to the people who use the system. And in the big picture, the coronavirus pandemic has caused pretty dramatic shifts in the ways that people travel. On some roads, traffic now exceeds pre-pandemic levels, while Metro Rail ridership is way down, much like restaurant revenue in residential neighborhoods and suburbs compared to downtown DC. Revitalizing downtown and rethinking Metro go hand in hand. And as a thought leader in this space, I'm really eager to get to work on that. Third and most important priority, though, is racial equity. We have the data that we need in order to operate WMATA in a way that is racially just. Can we say to ourselves now that we know this system provides the same level of service to riders of different racial and ethnic groups? We need to be able to say and do that. But right now, I don't think we can. Another angle relates to WMATA's diverse workforce. The system is maintained and operated every day by experts who are close to the system's problems. As a board member, I would like to see both WMATA riders and workers engaged in creating a resilient system. In conclusion, I'm very committed to making sure that in me, the district has a prepared, vocal representative in the room at each and every meeting. I want to be a conduit for a coordinated district agenda on the WMATA board. And I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. And thank you for your willingness to serve. I do have some questions for you. I think I'm going to start with this one. Near the end of your statement, you spoke about WMATA's diverse workforce. I feel you could elaborate more on that.
Sure. So the WMATA workforce is the bus driver that you see every day, who picks me up and takes my children to school. It's the guys who are working on the escalators, working on fixing those right now. It's the workers who inspect the 7000 series and who uncovered problems with the wheel sets. But it's also the planners at Central. So this workforce is extremely diverse in their capabilities, in the parts of the region that they live in their racial and economic backgrounds. And that is a lot of collective wisdom that is very, very close to the problems that the system is experiencing. We should be leveraging that wisdom as much as we can in order to make sure that the system is effectively serving the region.
Okay, and that's what's behind saying you'd like to see both WMATA riders and workers engaged in creating a resilient system.
Yes.
So let me ask you several questions that I ask of every nominee at the hearing. First of all, are you able to meet the time requirements to serve on the WMATA board?
I hope so. My understanding is that this is roughly 20 hours a month, but that estimate was given to me prior to the derailment last Thursday. I know that the board met in an emergency executive session today, and I'm anticipating that with the current crisis and with the imminent budget season, that the time commitment may be far greater. I will do my absolute best to meet the moment and to rise to the occasion.
You're mentioning the board meeting today. Assuming that we're able to mark up and vote on your appointment on November 2nd, when the council next meets, I think we actually have to have the resolution published in the register before it's effective. And in any event, so it could be the end of that week or the following week that your appointment would be real. Can you do anything between now and then to, how do I say, participate, even though you can't fully participate, to be brought up to speed, working with our other appointments to the board, as well as with staff, to get up to speed, to keep abreast of the situation?
I would really like to. I think that this is clearly a moment where we need a board member who can hit the ground running, if at all possible. But I think it's going to be up to a combination of my future board colleagues, DDOT, and the staff at WMATA in terms of like what information can legally even be made available to me. Until I'm appointed to the board, I'm a member of the public, just like everybody else. And I am doing what I can to prepare in advance. I've reached out to several former board members to try to learn from their experiences. And I'm trying to get a sense of what's going to be required of me, how I can get ready, and to clear with my day job the flexibility that I'll need in order to make myself available for plenty of daytime meetings in the next few months. So I've got that all set, but I think you're asking a good question, and that we have a lot of people to check with to find the real answer.
Okay, well, I'm going to, after this hearing, reach out to some folks to help, so that you have the ability to have those conversations and be better informed by the time you can actually take your seat on the board. What's my next question? Do you know of any potential conflicts of interest or legal issues that would interfere with you participating on the board?
I do not.
And if a conflict of interest were to arise, because there could be on a specific issue, what would you do?
Well, I have reviewed WMATA has a recently adopted updated code of ethics for its board members that I've reviewed, and I'm not anticipating any issues with that. That code does outline, some scenarios in terms of, what board members might need to do. I'm comfortable, committing myself to transparency and to recusing myself from any situation in which there might be a conflict of interest. But because of my husband's job, my financial situation is pretty straight and narrow. And I think I'm unlikely to be in a situation where there'll be a conflict.
Sure. I think that the code of conduct probably outlines what steps you would have to take if there was a question. Like,
Yeah.
I believe you have to consult with their general counsel or some officer there.
Yeah.
Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district or federal governments?
I do not.
So you spoke to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This week, Metro had to take 60% of its rail fleet out of service for at least this week and potentially several more weeks until the 7000 series axle issue can be sorted out and mitigated. While it's only been 3 days since the change, can you comment on how you think Metro has handled this issue and what steps should be taken to keep regional passengers moving on other modes, including buses?
That's a great question. So, how Metro Rail has handled this issue goes back to prior to the derailment, right? I have a lot of questions about when inspectors first found issues with the 7000 series cars and what has been done so far in terms of working with the manufacturer to resolve those issues. I've seen some media reports, but I don't know how accurate those are. But I think that any question of how WMATA has handled this has to go back to why this whole situation was not prevented in the first place. And, what this looks like from the outside is frankly like a massive stroke of luck that the derailment was not significantly worse and that no one was injured or killed. So it's great that transit is the safest mode of transportation, but people have a very, very high expectation of the level of safety and trust that they put in Metro Rail. And so that trust should never be toyed with. And so why this derailment was even in a position to occur is that's where the questions really need to start. After the derailment, WMATA has a somewhat complicated structure right now in terms of they have this independent, federally controlled oversight body that is regulating safety. So I don't want to get in there and litigate like he said, she said about the exact timing of when the decision was made to pull the 7000 series and what it's going to take to get the 7000 series back on the rails safely. But that said, I think that WMATA really fell short in terms of communications, of letting folks know that this huge service disruption was happening and what the alternatives were. I think that there is a massive amount of room for improvement in that, and that we don't need to we don't need to deal with like the bus driver shortage or how many workers have commercial driver's licenses or what. Better communications costs almost nothing and could make a huge difference. So I think that it's very unfortunate that the job that WMATA has done so far on communications, and I'd really like to see a better job. And then traffic's been pretty bad the last couple of days, just based on what I've seen. I have not driven in the city myself, though I have ridden Metro Rail since the service cut happened. And, I think that that's an all hands on deck situation there where we need WMATA working with all of the jurisdictions who are served by the system to communicate the alternatives and to try to mitigate this, because right now people are making decisions on their own, and mostly that decision is to get stuck in traffic. So I think that there's some bigger issues also regarding like taking a look at the frequent bus network and the fact that network currently doesn't include any connections across the Potomac River, which is a deficiency in the network and means it can't just immediately come into play in this situation. So ways that we can strengthen that network and make it more resilient. That's another thing that The best time to do it would have been before this happened. The second best time is now.
Thank you. I have two more questions, and then I'll turn to Councilmember Silverman for 5 minutes. Related to this, as a member of the WMATA board, what steps can you take or would you take to ensure that Metro is safe, reliable, affordable, and accountable? I'm not looking for a long answer here, but it is a conundrum that the board didn't know and of this problem for 4 years. Now it does know. Is there something the board could do differently so that it would know?
That is a good question, but it's also a little bit like Monday morning quarterbacking, in the sense that I'm currently not on the board and I don't have like full X-ray vision into the channels that they have in executive session to ask questions and to try to get answers to things. So I'm reluctant to right now to conclude that the current moment represents a failure on the WMATA board. I don't think that I have the information to conclude anything yet. Moving forward, I think that ultimately the Metro board has tremendous access to the general manager. They can ask the general manager anything, and that they need to take full advantage of that. They also have pretty good access to staff in terms of being able to get information. And so I think that every board member is serving in a part-time and volunteer capacity, but I'll do my best to do as much as I can to get information and digest it. I think that board members can also play a role in being a bridge between WMATA as a regional agency and the member jurisdictions of the compact or the federal government that they represent. And so I think an important part of my job will be making sure that myself, the council, DDOT, and any other relevant stakeholders are on the same page about priorities and things that we need to get done.
My last question has to do with EV buses. So the council held a hearing on September 30th about trying to electrify WMATA's bus fleet. What is your view of where WMATA should be going with regard to electrifying its bus fleet?
WMATA needs to electrify the bus fleet, and the sooner the better. So the big picture on this is that I do think that in the United States, through federal policy, we will be seeing a significant greening of the grid, and that in the future, more and more electricity is going to come from green and renewable sources. And so that is going to put, from a climate change standpoint, that will put electric buses, that makes them extremely attractive. And we need an all hands on deck, every strategy in play approach to limiting climate change. So for that reason alone, it's imperative that we electrify the bus fleet. For the residents of the district, this is even more important because we are the ones who live near bus barns and who live on, who have the greatest population density near bus lines. And any particulate emissions from buses, any bus that is not a zero emissions bus is a bus that is harmful to residents of the District of Columbia because those particulates affect our health, especially our children's health. And it's a bus that costs the District of Columbia because we pay for those emissions, not just in the form of the urban heat island effect, but in every asthma case that our children have to suffer and that are in our hospitals. So there are a number of reasons why it's urgent that we electrify the bus fleet. And I'm eager to see what I can do on the board to speed up WMATA's process on that.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to Councilmember Silverman for 5 minutes of question.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Ms. Lowe. I want to thank you for agreeing to be considered to be our appointee. You have an excellent background. And I also want to take this moment to thank the person you are replacing, Stephanie Gideby Jenkins, who I think really forged a new path for us in being a very active and collaborative WMATA member. But I do want to focus on what the chairman asked about earlier, which is the derailment, the safety issues around derailment, and why we're just learning about this now. So you said, did you say you are a regular Metro rider, Ms. Lowe?
Yes, I ride the bus every day. And then on some days, depending on what I'm doing, I do also use Metro Rail.
Okay. So from a rider's perspective, this situation is very frustrating and I would say angering. And then as a council member, it's frustrating and angering too, because we appoint members, 2 voting members, 2 alternates to the WMATA board. As you said, it's a regional compact. We contribute hundreds of millions of dollars to WMATA from our budget every year. And it had been in a financial crisis, as you know, when I first got on the council. Yet when there are critical safety issues like what happened this past week, we're in the dark, right? So as a rider, you find out Sunday night that, as the chairman said, 60% of the trains are going to be taken offline. And I think there were only 40 trains running on Monday morning. So here's my question, because I only have 5 minutes. Like, I am flummoxed what to do as a council member to represent my residents in this situation. So you're a rider, you're going to be our new member of the board. What can we do to work with you to make this better for our residents? Because what I really care about are our residents who were just completely taken by surprise Sunday night. And, you know, let me be clear, safety needs to be the #1 issue. But reliability is also important. And we have, you know, transit dependent residents who depend on this. I'm labor chair to get to their jobs, get to school. And it seems, and I'll just say, I guess I continue to try to understand why this wheel and axle issue was known in 2017, yet is only aggressively being addressed now. So what do we do to work with you on this?
Yeah, so I don't want to get super into the 7000 series wheel/axle issue right now because I don't have the full information yet. Believe me, as soon as I get it, I would be more than happy to brief you on it because I think a lot of us want more information about what's going on with this. So but I do want to speak to your question is awesome. And so I think the big picture regarding like the council's, your need as a member of the council to represent your constituents who are also WMATA customers and what your role in oversight of the agency is. It's not just appointing me. That's just one little thing. So in order to understand the bigger scope of what it is, first, ask the question that you just asked. That is huge. That is a massive first step for council members to be paying attention to what's going on at WMATA, to know who your board members are and to be in communication with them. That's huge. Second, WMATA doesn't operate in a vacuum. While, okay, the trains are running in magic tunnels very far under the ground, the buses are running on right-of-way that is owned and controlled by the district when they're within our boundaries. And they're stopping at bus stops that are cited and furnished by the district. And so there's plenty that council members can do in order to help the system work better, whether it's in crisis or.
I'm going to wedge in 2 questions to you because the chairman watches the clock on me very closely. One, how do we work with Mr. Bob and the other members of the Safety Commission that are DC residents? And two, should we be doing anything? Residents have written to me saying, let's work with DDOT to make bus lanes, express only and so forth. Do you agree with that? And will you be willing to work with DDOT on that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I'm over.
Yeah, so I addressed this a little bit in my pre-prepared testimony, which is that having a priority bus network, I think is a hugely important thing that we can do in order to strengthen the system. It would bake in more resilience in times of crisis like this, because when there's a problem on Metro Rail, that causes people to switch modes, both to bus and to cars. But it's really a problem for the bus to be stuck in traffic. And the only way to liberate buses from traffic is through priority bus lanes that are enforced. And we need that. We needed it yesterday, and we need it now, and we're gonna need it tomorrow. So we need to get to work on building that out. We have a plan. Let's implement it.
And how do we work with the Safety Commission?
The Safety Commission. Yeah. So this is a bigger question, because first off, WMATA hasn't always managed safety this way. This is since the 2009 derailment, and it may not always manage safety this way in the future. So I don't have the answer for you on that right now, but I would love to find out and report back to you on that, because that's an important question. And I share your commitment to the bottom line is that safety is of paramount importance. And, we don't want WMATA to just pop the 7000 series back onto the rails and magic us back in time to last week when a train derailed.
Yes. Thank you so much. Look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies to Councilmember Lewis George for taking up additional time.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis George, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Mendelson, and good to see you, Tracy. I want to bring some issues to your attention and see if there's a willingness on your part to look into these and be willing to advocate for the residents of Ward 4 in particular in regards to these issues. The first up is a long time issue, which is the 14th Street Bus Barn. The 14th Street Bus Barn is located in a residential neighborhood. It is in what some call 16th Street Heights community. Others will, there's confusion of whether there's 16th Street Heights or Petworth. Regardless, what is true is that neighbors are concerned with the 14th Street Bus Barn coming back with diesel vehicles. There was some controversy, and giving you some background here. It's been going on for a while. There was some controversy regarding WMATA releasing a statement saying that congratulations, residents, the bus barn will open with electric vehicles and mixed electric vehicles. And then they changed it probably like 5 minutes after the press release went out and changed that language. And now is saying there will be diesel buses going back. So there's some fundamental issues. We asked for environmental assessments to occur. We've asked for a number of issues to be addressed regarding the health and concerns of the neighbors of that area. To sum it up, none of those issues have been addressed. But I think the biggest one is really the electrification of WMATA buses and how soon and aggressively we can do that. Now, the bus barn is not slated to be ready until about probably at this rate, given where we are, 2026, which means there's an opportunity for them to just literally say to my ward residents that this will be an electric hybrid bus barn. Instead, they continue to insist that diesel buses be a part of the bus barn that's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So I just want to hear from you. And mind you, WMATA has come in. We've worked with Ann Chisholm. We've worked with members of the WMATA team, and they've come and listened to the community. And that was a big bridge because originally there was issues with listening and communication. But now they've been there, they've shown up and done a phenomenal job with communicating. It's just that communication hasn't necessarily got to the end result, which is neighbors in our community want electric bus barns. So I just want to hear from you, your commitment to electrifications of buses and doing that more effectively. WMATA continues to buy diesel buses, which is also very concerning for me, because if we're gonna go electric, buying diesel buses probably isn't a smart financial decision, nor does it appear that we're going to get to our electrification mark any sooner. So just want to hear about where you are on electrification of buses and where you are on being willing to hear out the residents of Ward 4 regarding the electrification of the 14th Street Bus Barn.
I want to meet them where they are. And I will just say that I also live next door to a bus barn, and I am very sympathetic to what they are going through. I have young kids who have young lungs, and I am living next to an extremely busy bus barn. Buses have pulled out of this bus barn and hit and killed people. They are emitting particulates on my house and into my children's lungs every day. I feel their urgency, but I share your sense that more needs to be done than just listening. I share your frustration about where we are on the timing of the electrification of the WMATA fleet. Why are other transit agencies in the region so far ahead of WMATA on electrification? There, my guess is there are reasons. I would love to be in a position to be able to ask the questions to get the answers to this. Is it that we need bigger bus barns to make room for the charging stations? What are the issues? What are the constraints? What can we as the district do to overcome those constraints? Because it's important to our residents, and we are uniquely positioned to benefit from electrification of the fleet, although the entire region and the globe will also benefit. This is uniquely important to the district. And so I want to find out what these constraints are, what it is that's setting the timeline, and how we can put our foot on the gas about taking our foot off the gas, if I may.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It looks like my time is up. There are two bus lines that have been cut. One impacts deeply the senior citizens that are in our Chevy Chase community, as well as Hawthorne, those residents who live in Knollwood, Sibley.
You're talking about the E4.
Yes, the E4. And so what I would like is just a willingness to be able to meet with the seniors of Knollwood and Sibley, who have expressed their dependence on the E4 and how the lack of that line has hurt them. And if you would be willing to meet and hear them out and hear their concerns. And I think the other line, was the S1, which is also a line that was cut unfairly, but really the E4, the seniors want to hear from WMATA. And if you're willing to talk to them and do that, that would be really appreciated, because they're very upset, and it has impacted their ability to go to grocery stores and do their day-to-day lives. And I would appreciate that as well.
Yes, council member, I would be happy to do that. I grew up in Barnaby Woods. The seniors that you're talking about are the parents and grandparents of the kids I went to school with, and I need to meet with them.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And the M4 was the other one that is overcrowded because of the E.
Yes.
So you know that whole area. So I appreciate your willingness to meet with the neighbors over there. I also would like to say to Chairman that I like your new glasses, and I'm sorry for going over time. Thank you.
Thank you. I was about to cut you off, but you saved yourself. Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah.
Ms. Lowe, I don't have any other questions for you. If there's anything else you want to follow up on, but I don't have anything, you have a couple weeks to do that. For the public, again, the record will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, November 1st. I want to thank you for your willingness to serve, and I think it will make a difference.
I'd just like to thank Councilmember Lewis George and Councilmember Silverman for taking the time to come to this today. I know that there's a lot going on, and I really appreciate you participating in this hearing, and thank you for your great questions.
With that, I'm going to conclude this hearing, and in a couple minutes, I'll start the third and final hearing of the Committee of the Whole today. The time is 2:50 and this hearing or roundtable is adjourned.